two broken people who found each other. And what they built here?
The stagecoach pulled into Willow Creek on a Thursday afternoon in late September. The sky hung low and grey, threatening rain that would not come. Dust swirled around the wooden wheels as the horses slowed to a stop near the general store. Inside the coach, a woman sat perfectly still. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her back was straight. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. She had been practicing this posture for 3 days. She had been practicing how to be small, how to be quiet, how to disappear into the background of a room. Her name was Miriam Hastings. She was 26 years old. She was about to meet the man she had agreed to marry through letters exchanged over 4 months. The door of the stagecoach opened, and the driver offered his hand. "You must be the bride everyone has been talking about." Miriam took his hand and stepped down carefully. She kept her eyes lowered. "Yes, sir, I am looking for Thomas Barlow." The driver pointed toward a man standing near a wagon. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at the edges of his hat. He was watching her with an expression she could not read. That would be him right there. "Good luck to you, miss." Miriam walked toward Thomas Barlow. Each step felt heavy. Each breath felt measured. She had prepared herself for this moment. She knew what men expected. She knew what wives were supposed to be. When she reached him, she stopped. She kept her gaze fixed on his boots. "Mr. Barlow, I am Miriam Hastings. I have arrived as promised. I will be obedient. I will cook your meals and clean your home and tend to your needs. I will not cause trouble. I will not speak out of turn. I will do everything you require of me. I understand my place." She waited for his response. She waited for him to nod in approval. She waited for him to tell her the rules of his household, the expectations she must meet, the punishments for failure. But Thomas Barlow did not say any of those things. Instead, he was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was gentle in a way that confused her. "Look at me, Miriam." She hesitated. Looking directly at a man was not something she had been permitted to do, but he had given her an instruction, so she obeyed. She raised her eyes to meet his. He was studying her face with something that looked almost like sadness. "I want you to hear something, and I want you to hear it clearly. I did not send for a servant. I did not send for someone to obey my every command. I did not send for a prisoner to keep in my home." Miriam felt her heart begin to race. This was wrong. This was not how it was supposed to go. Had she made a mistake? Had she said the wrong thing? Would he send her back? "I am sorry. I did not mean to displease you. Tell me what you want, and I will become it. I can change. I can be whatever you need." Thomas shook his head slowly. "That is exactly what I do not want. I do not want you to change yourself into something you think I need. I do not want you to disappear into my shadow and pretend you have no thoughts of your own. I sent for a wife, Miriam. A partner. Someone to stand beside me, not behind me. Someone to share this life with, not someone to serve me like I am some kind of king." Miriam felt something crack inside her chest. It was small at first, like a tiny fracture in glass, but then it spread. It spread through her ribs and into her throat and behind her eyes. "I do not understand." Thomas took a step closer. His voice dropped lower, softer. "Someone taught you to be afraid. Someone taught you that your only value is in how well you serve. Someone made you believe that you must make yourself small to be acceptable. I am telling you right now that ends today. In my home, you will have a voice. In my home, you will have choices. In my home, you will be a person, not a possession." The cracks spread further. Miriam felt her hands begin to tremble. She felt her knees begin to weaken. She felt something rising in her chest that she had pushed down for years and years and years. Nobody has ever said that to me. Thomas nodded slowly. I know. I could see it in your letters. I could read between the lines. I could feel the fear in every word you wrote. And I waited. I waited for you to arrive so I could tell you in person. You are safe here, Miriam. You do not have to perform. You do not have to pretend. You do not have to earn your place. The tears came without warning. They spilled down her cheeks in streams she could not stop. Her legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed right there in the street, her knees hitting the dirt, her hands covering her face. Thomas knelt down beside her. He did not touch her. He did not try to pull her hands away. He simply stayed there, close enough that she knew she was not alone. Let it out. However long it takes, I am not going anywhere. Miriam sobbed. She sobbed for the years she had spent in her uncle's house after her parents died. She sobbed for the way she had been treated like furniture, like property, like something less than human. She sobbed for every time she had swallowed her words and buried her feelings and made herself invisible just to survive. She sobbed until she had nothing left. When she finally looked up, Thomas was still there. His eyes were patient. His expression was calm. "Can you stand?" She nodded weakly. He offered his hand, and she took it. He helped her to her feet and steadied her when she swayed. "Let me take you home. We can talk." More there, no pressure, no expectations, just two people getting to know each other. Home. The word sounded foreign to her. She had not had a home in 8 years. They rode in the wagon through open land covered in golden grass. The ranch appeared over a hill, a modest house with a wide porch, and a barn painted red. Horses grazed in a fenced pasture. A dog ran to greet them, tail wagging. This is Willow Ranch. It is not much, but it is honest work and honest land. Miriam looked at everything with wide eyes. It was beautiful. It was peaceful. It was nothing like the cold, dark house where she had spent her recent years. Thomas helped her down from the wagon and led her inside. The house was clean but simple. There was a fireplace, a kitchen, a table with 2 chairs. Everything was functional and warm. "I prepared a room for you. It is yours. You can do whatever you want with it. If you need anything, you tell me. No asking permission. No waiting for approval. You tell me what you need, and we figure it out together." Miriam stood in the middle of the room and looked around. There was a bed with a quilt made of blue and white squares. There was a window that looked out over the pasture. There was a small dresser with a mirror. "This is mine. Yes. Yours alone. I will never enter without your invitation. That is your space." She turned to look at him. He was leaning against the door frame, keeping his distance, giving her room. "Why are you being so kind to me?" Thomas thought about the question for a moment before answering. "Because I know what it feels like to be treated like you do not matter. My father was not a gentle man. He believed that strength meant control. He believed that love meant ownership. I spent my childhood learning the wrong lessons about how to treat people. When he passed, I swore I would never become him. I swore that if I ever had a family, it would be built on respect, not fear." Miriam felt the tears threatening to return. "I do not know how to be anything other than afraid." "Then we will learn together. There is no rush. There is no deadline. We take this one day at a time." Over the following weeks, Miriam began to change. It was slow at first. She would catch herself asking permission to eat, and Thomas would gently remind her that the kitchen was hers to use whenever she wanted. She would catch herself apologizing for speaking, and Thomas would stop whatever he was doing and give her his full attention and tell her that her words mattered. The first time she laughed, it surprised them both. They were sitting on the porch after supper, watching the sun sink below the horizon. Thomas had been telling a story about a stubborn mule he had once tried to train, and the story was so ridiculous that a laugh escaped her before she could stop it. She immediately covered her mouth, her eyes wide with something like fear. Thomas smiled. "Do not hide that. I have been waiting weeks to hear that sound." Miriam lowered her hand slowly. I forgot what it felt like. To laugh. Then we need to make more memories worth laughing about. The seasons changed. Autumn turned to winter, and snow covered the ranch in a blanket of white. Thomas taught Miriam how to care for the horses. She discovered that she loved them, their warmth and their gentleness, and the way they seemed to understand her without words. Spring arrived with wildflowers and new calves and longer days. Miriam found herself singing while she worked in the garden. She did not even realize she was doing it until Thomas appeared beside her. "You have a beautiful voice." She blushed. "My mother used to sing. I had forgotten most of the songs, but they are coming back to me now. This place has a way of bringing things back. Things you thought you lost." By summer, Miriam was a different woman. She walked with her head held high. She spoke her opinions without fear. She made decisions about the household and the garden and the animals. She had become, without even noticing, exactly what Thomas had asked for: a partner. One evening, they sat together on the porch, as they always did. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. The air was warm and smelled of hay and flowers. "Thomas, yes, I need to tell you something. I am listening." She turned to face him fully. "When I arrived here, I was ready to disappear. I was ready to become nothing, to exist only to serve, to lose whatever was left of myself. I thought that was what marriage meant. I thought that was what I was worth." She paused, gathering her courage. "But you saw me. You saw past the fear and the obedience and the broken pieces. You looked at me and decided I was worth saving. Not saving like a rescue. Saving like believing in. You believed I could be more than what I had become. And because you believed it, I started to believe it too." Thomas remained silent, letting her finish. "I am not the woman who stepped off that stagecoach. I am stronger now. I am braver now. I know my own voice. I know my own heart. And I know that what I feel for you is not gratitude, though I am grateful. It is not obligation, though I am committed. It is love, Thomas. Real love. Thomas, real love. The kind that grows between equals. The kind that makes both people better." Thomas reached over and took her hand. "I have loved you since the moment you looked up at me with those terrified eyes and told me you would be obedient. I loved you because I saw the fire underneath all that fear. I saw the woman you were meant to be, fighting to survive. And I'd promised myself I would do whatever it took to help her find her way out." Miriam squeezed his hand. She found her way. "I know. I have been. Now. Watching her bloom for months now." They sat together as the sun finished its descent, and the stars began to appear. The night was quiet except for the sound of crickets and the occasional whinny of a horse. "What happens now?" Thomas smiled. "Now we live, we build, we grow, we grow. We face whatever comes as partners, side by side." Miriam leaned her head against his shoulder. "I like the sound of that." The wedding happened in autumn, exactly 1 year after she arrived. The ceremony was small, just a few neighbors and the preacher from town. Miriam wore a dress she had made herself, white with delicate blue flowers embroidered along the hem. When the preacher asked if she took Thomas as her husband, she did not hesitate. "I do. Not because I must, but because I choose. I choose this man. I choose this life. I choose partnership over possession. I choose love over fear. I choose to stand beside him as his equal for as long as we both live." Thomas smiled at her words. They were not traditional vows, but they were not traditional vows. Years passed. The ranch grew. Children came, 2 daughters and a son, raised with the same principles their parents had built their marriage upon: respect, choice, partnership. Partnership. Miriam often thought about the woman she had been when she arrived, the woman who expected cruelty, the woman who had forgotten her own name in the shadow of survival. That woman felt like a stranger now, a ghost from another life. But she never forgot her. She kept her memory alive as a reminder of how far she had come. And sometimes, when she sat on the porch in the evening and watched the sun set over the land she now called home, she whispered a quiet thank you to the man who had seen her collapse in the street and chosen not to lift her up, but to kneel beside her until she was ready to stand on her own. That was the difference. That was everything. He had never tried to save her. He had simply believed she could save herself. And she had.